Yeah, it's good to be getting back in the squared circle. I've been away for a long time, and when Joe, a good friend of mine, baited and put the challenge out there to me, I sort of dusted it off to start off with. I didn't believe he was really serious. I thought, surely not. But maybe the rounds that we sparred, maybe he sort of saw something there which gives him confidence. But as far as I'm concerned, this is I'm doing this for myself, and getting back into the gym every day, twice a day, watching the nutrition. I'm a healthy guy. I look after myself. Ever since I retired from competitive boxing, you wouldn't be able to tell that I wasn't still actively boxing, as I'm, health and fitness and well-being is a big part of my life. So when this challenge was put to me by Joe, I felt ready. I felt good. I lost my last two competitive boxing matches against Tony Bellew. My penultimate fight was, definitely hindered by a snapped Achilles tendon. I had to recover that before the rematch, and before that rematch, I snapped my left bicep, came off the bone, so I had to recover that before the fight. And then obviously when I'm in there taking the punches from the WBC cruiserweight champion, it felt as though my time was over. It felt like my time was gone, and I announced my retirement not long after that final bout of mine. But that was 3 years ago, and I've stayed away from the boxing elements of training. I train, I'm in a gym, I do weight training, I do sprints, I do all the training except the punching side. And because I know my personality, I know once the juices start flowing, I start going. And this opportunity, strangely, has really got the juices flowing. I feel physically, very, very young. Going into my last two bouts against Tony Bellew, I feel I am in physically better condition. My Achilles is healed, my biceps healed. I can do the things in training I was avoiding doing back then. So unfortunately for Joe, I know he's banking on my body failing, but he's picked me at the wrong time. He should have picked me, a couple of months after my last defeat. It had much better chance back then.
Now, David, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to leave it up to David first, and then Joe, you can go ahead and piggyback off this. But the origins of this fight, it stemmed from when you guys were on the Greek island of Mykonos. You guys are hanging out, and a woman says, hey, could you fight him? I mean, can you kind of dive into detail? Because from what I gather, it stemmed from a woman who said, hey, who would win out of both of you? And then David, you kind of thought it was like, are you serious? And Joe said, well, I would beat him. And he didn't even think twice about that. So can you guys provide context about how this happened?
Well, first there was a bunch of people at dinner, and we're all friends. We're chopping up. We're having some fun, eating some food, having some drinks. And a girl, obviously, she's not a boxing fan, but she's aware that obviously Joe's a competitive boxer. Everybody knows that. I'm a former boxer who's now retired. This girl doesn't know me, but she's made aware, David used to box. So she just asked a reasonable question. Oh, who would win out of you two? We've seen similar sizes. And I said, out of respect, as he's an active boxer, I said, maybe a draw, maybe we'd be close. You're just trying to just diffuse the question and move on. But Joe, obviously, a few tequilas, he's like, nah. Not now. Maybe back in the day, yeah, but now it's my time. I'm the active fighter. You're retired. Your legs snapped, your shoulders snapped. You right, today I win, but back then I'm like, whoa, slow down, seriously. And that's where it started. And he even the next day when I said, dude, what's up with that? He was like, no, I would beat you. Just us two, no hype, no one else around. He went, no, seriously, I would beat you. So I then said, okay, before we were friends, before we get, before it gets a bit too spicy, let's go to the gym and put some sparring gloves, head guard. I'll show you exactly the levels of both of us. He's like, no, if I'm going to get in the ring with you, I'm going to get in the ring with you under the real lights, with the fans watching. I want my kids to see what I'm going to do. And I was like, and then fast forward a few weeks, and here we are doing a press conference prior to the Staples Center where the Lakers play, Oscar De La Hoya, one of my all-time heroes. Truly, you've got Tito Ortiz, Anderson Silva, Vito Belfort. It's like, this is a crazy, impressive collection of musicians and fighters from boxing and mixed martial arts, all mixed together on one epic night. And myself and Joe are chucked in there as well. So it's, everything happens for a reason, and the stars and moon aligned where we had this bit of argument and there's this big mega event happening, and here we are. So it's given me the little boxing bug back. The training's gone very, very nice. And unfortunately for Joe, we've done some training sessions together. We played basketball together. Yeah, he can beat me at basketball. One-on-one basketball, he wins pretty easy. But this is boxing. I believe I win this fight very easy. To be brutally honest, this whole thing was a one-off. This whole thing, in my mind, was 5 weeks of training. Because when I train, I go chips in with my training. My nutrition's on point. My, everything's, I don't leave any stone unturned. And it takes, I've cancelled, my family are in Marbella on a family holiday. I was supposed to be there with them now, but I've put my family holiday vacation on hold because that wouldn't allow me to prepare as best as I can do for this bout. So I know every session I've done, it's been an improvement on the prior session, and I can feel myself continually improving in a way which I haven't felt this fresh for a long time. My legs have never felt this fast. My timing seems like it's as, feels like the good old days. Maybe that's because I've had a lot of time out. Maybe because I haven't punched for so long. You remember the injuries that I have had in the past. Instead of just doing a rehabilitation, for instance, when I snapped my Achilles tendon during my first fight with Tony Bellew, I didn't just do the rehabilitation for my Achilles. I had to start training for not only when the doctor said it would take 6 months for it to be healed. I'd scheduled a fight for 6 months after that point. So I'd have to do my training whilst healing. And there's never been a time in my life where I've been able to just stop hardcore training and just do the type of training that keeps me healthy, that keeps me supple, that keeps me strong. And if there was ever a time to, when you see me in the ring, when you see the way I move, when you see how I feel, I think, there's definitely going to be people who will say, well, okay, why can't you continue boxing? Why can't you continue at the top level? Although this fight isn't, a world title fight, it's me preparing and getting in the ring at the Staples Center under the lights. It's a big occasion. It's a huge occasion. Even if I wasn't fighting on this show, I'd be paying to watch the show. The show is going to be a fantastic event. And I'm a big event fighter, always have done. And it's really got the juices flowing. So maybe depending on how I can't go by the training camp, because the training camp prior to Tony Bellew's, my last 2 fights felt good. And I felt very confident that I was going to win the fight and move on to a world title fight. It didn't happen. So I'm not going to make any unnecessary predictions that, yes, I'm going to make a comeback. No, I feel better than I have done in training. But when that first bell rings, I'm aware anything can happen. So I'm just going to focus on Joe Fournier, on performing the best I can. And depending on how that goes, I'll then make some future plans. But at the moment, I'm not thinking past, September 11th. Boxing's the ultimate loner sport. You're in there on your own, and you got no friends when you're in there, and you just got to do whatever you need to do to get to do what you believe is what you're trained, what is going to happen. And whether we're whether we're best buddies, whether we hate each other, the performance will be exactly the same. I've learned to sort of disconnect my emotions to someone's personality as a human being. This is an athletic performance. You know, if we was running against each other in a 100-meter sprint, whether he's my best buddy or whether I hate him, I'm not going to run any quicker. You know, my style is you do what you're trained to do. And you know, emotions about friendships you sort of put on hold, as Joe said. You put that on pause. We do what you got to do. It's only a few weeks. Afterwards, hopefully he'll still speak to me afterwards. Yeah.
But David, you'll be actively like full blown trying to knock Joe Fournier out.
You just tune in and see. You know, I find it very difficult. You know, I'm a professional boxer who's been doing this since I was 10 years of age. You know, I can when that bell rings, you know, I've been through every situation, every scenario that there possibly is, and you know, I've rarely been in a situation when I've not been able to, you know, do what I'm born to do. And you know, I know my experience, you know, is so much more than what. Although I've assisted Joe over the years, we sparred a hell of a lot of rounds together, and when we was sparring, it was in my mind that I'm heavier than him. But you know, if it wasn't for the sparring session, here's an interesting point. If it wasn't for the sparring sessions we had, I might not have been taking this fight as seriously as I am, if that makes sense. I'm really fortunate that I have sparred with him because I know about his punch power. He's heavy-handed. He can punch. There's a reason why he's got a 100% knockout ratio. You know, I've seen him knock people out in sparring lots of times. I've seen him, I've seen him spar with Chris Eubank Jr., with James DeGale. He's mixed it up with very good world-level operators, and I'd be stupid to go in there thinking, he's not a real boxer. No, he is a real boxer. I've been there with him as he's been doing a real boxer. I've used him as a sparring partner. So I'm fortunate for that. So I see Joe a lot more seriously than everybody else sees him. When everyone comes to me, yeah, he's no good, you'll do this and that, I'll say, yeah. But I know I have to be in shape. I know I have to train. My head work needs to be good. Speed needs to be on point. And that's why I'm pushing myself so hard. So when that first bell rings, you're going to see, I'm hoping that the David Haye, the Haymaker, who isn't hampered with injuries and dragging his back foot along, you'll see a fleet-footed, speedy Haymaker.
In a way, some of your legacy at stake here, or do you not see it that way?
It's an interesting question. I thought about. I remember watching Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. The commentary for the UK feed on BT Sport, and I remember that I got butterflies when they were both coming to the ring, and seeing my heroes going up there and performing way past their prime, way past their prime. It was I was remember thinking, there's something about it. Then you look back at fighters like George Foreman, 45 years of age, coming back to beat Michael Moorer. I remember that one. I remember his amazing fight with Evander Holyfield. That he lost a very close fight there. And certain fighters peak late. Some of them have their time, and I'm unaware. I honestly don't know what is left. I know in the gym when I've been training recently, and I haven't been training that long. I train every day, train an hour every day, but I've never really I've never been in a situation like this before, where I've been out for so long, and now here I am coming back to get in the ring at a Staples Center on such a big event on such short notice. There is pressure to look good. The last thing I want is to look terrible. I'm not sure what the press and the media and the fans are going to think I'm going to look like. Hopefully I look and resemble something like I was once before, resembling what I looked like in my last 4 comeback fights, I don't believe, maybe the first one was a first round knockout. Second one was, I think it was a second round knockout. But my last 2 against, world level opposition, Tony Bellew, who's a WBC cruiserweight champion, I think that showed where I was at that time. And at that time, I wasn't good enough to beat Tony Bellew, who was the cruiserweight world champion. Would I be good enough today? Am I worse than I was then, or am I better? It's completely unknown. Whoever's in the other corner, Joe Fournier, your question was, is there more at stake? Whoever is in the opposing corner, it's irrelevant. This is not about who I'm fighting. This is about me going through the process of training for a boxing match. Getting used to taking the punches. My body's aching, my shoulders, my legs, my calves, my ankles, my neck. I'm doing the types of training I haven't done for a long time, but I'm enjoying it. I enjoy waking up and hobbling to the shower in the morning, and then the shower warming me up to get back down there to the gym and train some more. I like that feeling. It's been a long time since I've had that, but I think this fight is going to be a spectacle, and it's going to be an education because I know, Versus and Triller, there's a very young demographic who tune into this platform, and I think they're going to see some amazing, some of the old boys, Oscar De La Hoya, he's in his early 50s now, but these kids might not have seen him in his prime, but he's one of the greatest to ever do it. As a teenager, I was a massive fan, still am, of Oscar De La Hoya, and to see him, and then even my kids, my daughter's 11, my eldest son Cassie's is 13. I won the world title 12 years ago. This, daddy's, what daddy did was a long time ago, and it's nice for them to see me going through the process of preparing for a fight, and getting back out there and doing my thing. So it's for me, it's irrelevant whether I'm fighting, Joe Fournier or whoever it is in the other corner. This is all about, in my mind, it's all about me, how I can motivate myself, how I can get through training, and get in the ring in tip-top shape, with the ability to be explosive, be dynamic, and be able to do what I've always done, as I wasn't able to do that in my last couple of fights. But since these few weeks I've been working out, doing the specific boxing training, it feels very different to my last few fights, from my prior comeback fights. Maybe because there was no pressure recently to continue training, so I've just allowed everything to rejuvenate, recover, and I feel like a brand new man. But I've still got 3 more weeks of training, and I've still got to get in the ring under the lights. And I've still got someone undefeated throwing punches at me with mean intentions. So after the fight, we'll be able to see exactly where I am. Usually I'd take probably 12 to 15 weeks preparation for a 12-round contest, and that's just what I've done. The fact that this was sprung on me with 5 weeks preparation, it's allowed me to have a shorter preparation time, and strangely it seemed to have worked for me to jump straight in. Normally I do a bit of strength phase, I've been doing a lot of heavy lifting, then I'll turn it to power, then speed. So I don't have that luxury of time, which means I've just got to fast track everything, and by fast tracking everything, it feels like I've leapfrogged 6 to 8 weeks. I was fortunately in decent shape. It's not like, a lot of fighters need to lose sometimes 10, 15 pounds of that good life living weights that they accumulate, after a boxing match. But
don't be a hater.
As I've said from the start, I live a Joe, I'd like to consider myself a healthier liver than Joe. And talking of liver, my liver is pretty clean versus Joe. He's in nightlife industry, owns restaurants and pubs and bars and beach clubs. So there's a lot of alcohol consumption in his daily routine, not as much in mine. And I think because I've lived a clean lifestyle since post-retirement, it allows me to, when it's time to start training, I can go straight into it. I can start running, I can start lifting, I can start punching at a good speed.
Dude, you're like RoboCop. You've been put together like 45 times.
Yeah, I've had
your liver. You probably have a steel liver. How do you get through security with all the screws in you, man?
Yes, I have had some reconstructive surgery over the years, but it's all healed up. It's all locked in now. Other than struggling to go through metal detectors, the meat that's laid over the top of the wired together structure is rock solid. Unfortunately, for your good self, I haven't done anything other than a couple of press conferences since my last 2 stoppage losses. So I think it'd be disrespectful to all 4 of those. Usyk was a undefeated, undisputed cruiserweight champion who worked his way up to the #1 mandatory position to challenge Anthony Joshua's WBA, IBF, and WBO titles. And then you got Deontay Wilder, in his 3rd match with Tyson Fury, who's undefeated himself. So, I can't mention their name, off the strength of a couple of interviews that I've done, because that's technically all I've done since losing is have 3 weeks, 2 weeks of training, and scheduled to fight Joe Fournier at the Staples Center on the Oscar De La Hoya Vito Belfort undercard, effectively. So I wouldn't want to mention any of those guys' names. Depending if I feel after the fight on September 11th something different, I'll be sure to let you know first thing. But as of right now, I can't think of fighting one of these guys. All I'm thinking about is getting through the remaining 3 weeks of training in a healthy condition, in one piece. Not getting injured. As a lot of the injuries I've received over the years have happened in preparation for a fight. There's only a couple of fights I've been injured in the fight. So for me, it's the challenge of this whole event is to get to the ring in one piece. And Joe jokes about being RoboCop and having pins and stuff, and been held together. But I understand why that is, because it is a tongue in cheek, but there's a bit of reality there that I can't train the same way as I did do when I was 30. I can't have 6 sparring partners doing 2 rounds in, 2 rounds in, 2 rounds in continuously. That those days are over. I've got to be a lot more conservative and economical with my energy. I've got to make sure my massage is on point. I've got to make sure my physiotherapist, my chiropractor, I've got to make sure my blood works neat and tidy. I've got to make sure my new hydration levels are optimal, my sleep patterns are optimal. There's so much that goes into making sure I get through the ropes on September 11th in one piece, healthy, ready to perform. I can't 1 second think a day past that, because if I do start thinking about some of these super duper names you mentioned, those 4 names are the big boys in the division. If I start thinking about them and take my eye off Joe Fournier, can you imagine the humiliation if I end up even looking bad there? That's a let alone I can't afford that to be remotely an option. I need to give Joe Fournier a boxing education. I need to pack his lunchbox and take him to boxing school on September 11th, because anything other than that, I'd be very, very upset.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ellie. We're going to take one last question and get these gentlemen back to their training. Last one's from Dylan Boker. Go ahead, Dylan.
Hey there. My first question here is for David, because you kind of just addressed the question in relation to the modern crop of heavyweight guys, but I'd also seen an article indicating potentially some level of interest in, fighting Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, sort of teasing a comeback a little bit. Obviously, very focused on this fight here, but entertaining the hypothetical, you get the ideal outcome. Could those sort of matches compel you to get out there for an additional bout?
I was asked about, of all the living fighters, who would, you in an ideal world, who do you want to fight? And I believe, Lennox Lewis is, one of the greatest to ever do it. I can't see Lennox Lewis on his day, losing to any heavyweight in history. I just think he's that good. So I said if there was ever a heavyweight in history that I'd love to have, you know, mixed it up with, is Lennox Lewis. You know, I don't know, is he 50 or he's in his 50s? He doesn't. I haven't heard any talk of him or Evander Holyfield. He's probably another one of my all-time heroes. The only other fighter to have, you know, he let me know it's possible. He let me know the small guy, you know, can beat the big guy. You know, it's the size of the fight in the dog, not the size of the dog in the fight. And
exactly like this fight.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, exactly. You keep thinking like that, but you're a very different proposition to Evander Holyfield. You know, he is the real deal. Literally, he's the real deal. You know, watching Tyson and Roy Jones do it. You know, I heard there's talk of Holyfield wants to do something similar, and he's, you know, I haven't heard of Lennox Lewis, but you know, just, you know, being, you know, just to know that there's a version of our reality where these crazy matchups are happening now. You know, it's exciting. You know, but once again, I don't want to start thinking about you know, dream matchups when, you know, if Joe is a big banana skin, a giant banana skin that, you know, I cannot slip over on whatsoever. I've got to sweep it up and put it in the trash. I can't step on it and fall on my butt.